Thank you all for coming this afternoon. In today's lecture, we're going to be taking a look at trends in language and the ways that new buzzwords are created in English. As I'm sure you know, thousands of new words enter the English language each year. In some languages, new words don't develop very often, but it happens a lot with English because native speakers like to play around with the language. The technology of the 2000s increased the addition of new tech words and phrases. For example, predictive is an adjective whose first use was recorded back in 1637. But the phrase predictive text, which is what happens when your smartphone automatically uses a word when you've typed just a few letters, was added to the Macmillan Dictionary in 2013. Other examples of new tech words include photobomb. The first known use of that was in 2008, and pocket dial, which was added to the Oxford English Dictionary in 2015. The explosion of social media use in the 2010s also increased associated words, so we get buzzwords such as tweetheart for people who are liked or admired on Twitter, and selfie for taking photos of yourself to post online. The use of initialisms increased with the development of the cell phone. An initialism is when you take the first letter of each word in a phrase and pronounce each letter individually. You'll all be familiar with these words, I'm sure. LOL stands for... anyone?
Laugh out loud.
Of course. What about FYI?
For your information.
Exactly. And JSYK?
Just saying you know?
No, not saying, but so. Just so you know. Here's something like an initialism, but you pronounce the initial letters like a word. For example, FOMO, made of the letters FOMO. It's called an acronym. Does anyone know what FOMO means? No? Well, that one is fear of missing out. It means feeling anxious because an interesting event is happening somewhere, but you're not there. People usually realize they are missing out from posts on social media. New words are also created by adding two words and their meanings together. The words brunch, hangry, and mocktail are all examples of blended words. If you didn't know, a mocktail is a cocktail without any alcohol in it. It's a combination of mock and cocktail. Shortening words to create new ones is also common. These are called abbreviations, and shortened words include dis, which means to show disrespect to someone, and info, as in information. For example, do you have any info on that? Or that's a lot of info to take in. Finally, we can see how, in our globally connected world, we borrow words and phrases from other languages. Tsunami and karaoke from Japanese, barista, which is the Italian word for someone who works in a bar, and à la carte from the French for chosen from the menu. The last point I want to make before I stop to answer any questions is that words can develop different meanings over time. Slang, or informal language, often develops when we take a word and use it in its opposite sense. Let me give you an example. The word sick. Now we know that sick, the adjective, means ill or not well. But the first use of it as a synonym for excellent was recorded in the US in 1983. Since then, it's become very common, particularly in the skateboarding and snowboarding culture. A similar thing has happened with the words bad and wicked, which are both used informally to emphasize that something was great. That movie was wicked good is something you hear among young people in New England. Who knows what new words will be used in the future?
How many of you often put off doing important things like writing a paper or doing a project? Raise your hand. Almost everyone, but one. And how do you feel when you procrastinate?
Terrible. I know I should be working or studying, and I feel really guilty when I can't get down to it. At the beginning of this semester, I promised myself I wouldn't put things off, but I'm still doing it.
Me too. I know I waste a lot of time worrying about things I have to do instead of doing them. Yesterday, I was going to start on my term paper, but I spent most of the day trying to decide between two topics. and I never got around to actually starting the paper.
Yeah. Last weekend, I was supposed to start reading a book for my English class next week, but I couldn't get motivated to do it. So now I'll have to read it really fast to catch up on my work.
I don't really procrastinate too often. It makes me so stressed to put something off. I would rather just do it and get it over with.
Well, here's the good news for procrastinators. First, procrastination is completely normal. In fact, most people procrastinate at least some of the time. Second, procrastination can actually be good for you. Why do you think that is?
I guess maybe it's not good to try to do something if you're not feeling motivated to do it. You may do a bad job and just have to do it over.
I agree. If I know that I'm not going to do something well, it's usually better to do something else first and wait until I'm ready to do the other thing. Then I'm more relaxed when I start the important task.
Yes, lack of motivation is one reason for putting things off. Another reason is that your first idea is not necessarily your best idea. So if you don't start a task right away, you may come up with a better idea.
Oh, that's really true for me.
It is for a lot of people. Finally, you may actually get more done if you put off working on a big task for a while. One of the main ways to procrastinate is to do smaller tasks to avoid doing the big one. So you may finally clean out your closet or vacuum the floor while you're waiting to get motivated to do the big task.
That all makes sense, Dr. Mills. But are you saying that it's better to procrastinate than not to? If so, I may try to learn to procrastinate more. I was going to start on a new project tomorrow, but maybe I'll clean my apartment or something.
No, Nicole. In fact, I was just getting ready to talk about the negative effects of procrastination. While procrastination can sometimes be productive, like when you get other important things done while you're thinking about that big task or project, it can sometimes just be wasting time. If your form of procrastination is lying on the sofa watching TV, then that really is not productive.
You mean that procrastination can stress you out more than actually completing your task?
Yes. Some people relax if they don't try to force themselves to get started on something before they're ready. But most people feel pretty stressed out when they think they're not doing what they need to do. Finally, I mentioned that putting something off can sometimes result in better ideas, but the opposite can also be true. If you wait too long to start the job, you'll have to do it very quickly, and the result may not be very good.
So are you basically saying that there's good procrastination and bad procrastination?
Yes, I guess so, Ben. Psychologists have good arguments both for and against procrastination. I think you have to see what works best for you psychologically. If putting off a job gives you time to think more creatively, then do it. On the other hand, if getting other things done makes you feel productive and ready for the big project, then go for it.
But if you're like me, and procrastinating makes you feel worried and stressed, then it's better to get started and just stick with it until you get it done, right?
That's right. Okay, I just have one final question. In the last class, I assigned your term papers, and in theory, you were all starting on them last weekend, right? So how many people actually started? About 4 people. Okay, all you procrastinators, don't forget that your papers are due in 3 weeks. Dream big or not. Reach for the stars. Follow your dreams. We hear and see motivational phrases like this all the time, and many people convince themselves, or others, that if they don't have big dreams for the future, they are lazy or unambitious. Is that true? Or are they just being realistic? Should you dream big and work hard to achieve as much as possible, or should you follow the advice of another common phrase? Take time to smell the flowers. Every day we see examples of people who started out as ordinary people, dreamed big, and achieved incredible success. We hear that person X is living the dream. We are told that we can do anything if we put our minds to it and work hard enough. It is true that if you aren't motivated and don't work hard, you will probably not achieve great success. But what if you work hard and fail anyway? It is arguable that having big dreams may actually get in the way of success. First, maybe you simply don't have the aptitude for what you would love to do. If you convince yourself that you will never be happy if you don't achieve your big dream of being a movie star, you may spend the rest of your life doing temporary jobs and being turned down for movie roles. Second, even if you have the abilities needed to achieve your goal, it might not be possible within your life circumstances. Can you really afford to quit your job to be a full-time musician? The failure to achieve goals, even if we know they are probably unrealistic, can lead to depression and unhappiness. On the other hand, big dreams can provide a lot of motivation. There is a difference between having unrealistic dreams and believing that you can make your life better if you work hard to overcome the obstacles to success. One of the most important factors in achieving your dreams is your mindset, or the beliefs that you have about your own abilities. People who have a growth mindset believe that they can achieve almost anything they want to do if they work hard and don't give up on their dreams. They use positive visualization to help them believe in themselves. For example, if you imagine that you will be working in your dream job or living in your dream house in 10 years, you can motivate yourself to do what is necessary to achieve that goal. There are good reasons for having big dreams. As humans, we need to feel hope that our future will be better than our present. Almost no one thinks, I hope that in 10 years I'll be doing exactly the same thing I'm doing now and be in the same financial situation as I'm in now. Trying to achieve your dreams also makes you more creative and courageous. In order to achieve your goals, you have to have the courage to try and the courage to fail. If you are not afraid to fail, you will learn a lot and do better the next time you try. Failure makes some people give up, but it makes people with a strong growth mindset think more creatively and learn to find innovative solutions to problems. There is a practical approach to achieving your dreams. First, write down your dreams, both big and small. Second, make sure that all of your dreams are specific and that they have a set time frame. For example, don't just write, I will have my dream job. Write, in 10 years, I will be managing the sales department of a large company. Next, choose just a few dreams to focus on. You might want to choose one large long-term goal and a few smaller short-term goals. Break them down into steps and assign a time frame for each step. For larger, long-term goals, make sure you include some things you can do immediately to start the process. Finally, identify any obstacles that may prevent you from achieving your dreams. These may be real obstacles like not yet having certain skills that are necessary for what you want to do. Or they may be obstacles that are in your head. In other words, the obstacles may be things like fear of making changes or a feeling that you are not smart or creative enough to achieve your goals. When you have identified the obstacles, decide whether your dream is realistic. If so, think of solutions to the obstacles. If you focus on having a growth mindset, in believing in your ability to achieve your goals, and if you follow the practical steps described above, you will be on the right path for achieving your dreams. A good life slogan might be, dream big, start small, keep going. The psychology of selling. It is unsurprising that marketing is based on figuring out what consumers need and what they want, and that those often may not be the same thing. What may be surprising is that in the 21st century, companies are still using a theory from 1943 to evaluate people's needs and wants. In 1943, psychologist Abraham Maslow introduced a hierarchy of human needs which ranged from basic to advanced. As shown in the image, The hierarchy is shown as a pyramid. Basic needs, like food and water, are in the broad base of the pyramid. The most advanced needs, like personal growth and creativity, are at the top of the pyramid. The pyramid shape reflects both the relative importance of each category and the number of people who fit into each category. In other words, the things in the bottom two sections of the pyramid are necessary for physical survival. On the other hand, the top three sections of the pyramid are social and psychological issues that are unimportant, or at least less important, until the more basic needs are satisfied. Maslow's theory has been criticized by psychologists who say that it oversimplifies how people think. They point out that people still care about social and psychological needs even if some of their more basic needs are unsatisfied. While it is true that people do not fit perfectly into the categories in the image, Maslow's theory does have uses in marketing and advertising. In marketing and advertising, many products and services fulfill more than one need, but most marketing is aimed at the higher-level categories of self-esteem and self-actualization. For example, a hotel satisfies the basic needs for sleep and shelter, but ads for hotels are often aimed at self-actualization by projecting images of beauty, entertainment, and relaxation. They may also aim at self-esteem by projecting images of wealth and luxury. Companies also market different types of the same product in different ways, according to the needs of different market segments. For example, if an auto manufacturer has a mid-priced SUV and a high-priced sports car, the market segments for the two cars are very different, and the advertising will be aimed at very different needs in Maslow's hierarchy. The ads for the SUV will probably focus on its reliability and safety, and maybe love and belonging because many buyers will be families with children. They will not buy a car that they consider to be unsafe. The sports car buyer, on the other hand, has different needs, so the ads will focus on the top two segments of the pyramid: self-esteem and self-actualization. While the hierarchy may not perfectly describe how human needs function, most companies do not underestimate the importance of needs analysis in their marketing strategies. Companies often rework their advertisements if they feel they have misunderstood the needs of their target markets. Sometimes products even disappear for a while and then reappear with different packaging and different advertising that better reflects the needs that the product is supposed to satisfy. It is likely that businesses will still be using Maslow's hierarchy as a model for needs analysis far into the future for one important reason. While products change over time, human psychology really doesn't change much at all.
Both photographs show people enjoying themselves in nature. In the first photograph, I can see a family with young children in a park. In the second photograph, an older man is running with headphones. The trees are not very green in this photo, so it's probably fall, whereas there is green grass in the background of the first photo, so it's either spring or summer there. One thing both photos have in common is that the people are wearing comfortable clothes. The children are wearing t-shirts because the sun is shining and it's hot. In contrast, the older man is wearing a light jacket because it's cool out. I think the people in both pictures are enjoying themselves, even though they're doing different things. The man seems to be happy that he's exercising in the fresh air, while the family seems to be enjoying their picnic. Overall, I think the people in both photos really like being outside because it's relaxing, healthy, and fun.
I'm really looking forward to vacation. Should we go camping again like last year?
Camping was fun, but it wasn't very relaxing. I didn't like sleeping in a tent. How about the beach? We can relax or get some exercise, like swim or go for walks if we like.
But we went to the beach 2 years ago. Maybe we should try something different, like visit a city that has an interesting history and some good museums. What do you think?
I like sightseeing, so that's a good idea. We can always go to the beach another time. As long as we don't go camping, I don't care.
Hi, Kaya. Sorry I missed your call earlier. I was having lunch at the beach in a really beautiful restaurant with fantastic views of the ocean. You should try it sometime. Yes, dinner tomorrow night sounds great. If you like, we could go for a picnic. I think there's a park nearby that has tables, although it might get cold in the evening. We could also cook in my apartment and eat on the balcony. I think that's a better idea. Do you want to come around 7 p.m.? Tomorrow you should go to that beach restaurant. The food is great. Let me know.
I think it was Mark Twain, the North American writer, who once said, "Truth is stranger than fiction." If you need any convincing of that, you don't need to look any further than the natural world. Our planet is full of truly amazing natural wonders, from the bright pink algae in Lake Hillier to the ghostly northern lights up in the northern hemisphere. If none of that is good enough for you, take a trip to the Space Coast of Florida. The Space Coast is obviously famous for man-made wonders such as the Kennedy Space Center, where rockets launch into the atmosphere, but it's also famous for its bioluminescent lagoons. This is a natural phenomenon where tiny creatures such as plankton and bacteria glow a bright blue color at night. When the waves move or you swim through the plankton or bacteria, they glow brightly. So how and why does this happen? The fact is that no one is yet 100% sure why this happens, but it looks like there is a chemical reaction that occurs in the plankton or bacteria that makes them release a light. Some scientists think that it might be a reaction to oxygen in the atmosphere, which is toxic to some bacteria. And the bioluminescence happens as a result of reactions that change the oxygen into chemicals that are not toxic. Others think that they release the light to distract predators. Whatever the reason, it's a truly incredible experience. Tourists can rent a transparent kayak and paddle on the Indian River to see the bioluminescence around and under them. It's not just in Florida where bioluminescence happens. Bioluminescence shrimp cover the seaside rocks in Okayama, Japan, making them look like blue monsters. In various oceans around the world, bioluminescent bacteria create big, beautiful blue areas at night. They can be up to 15,000 square kilometers in size. This is called the Milky Seas effect, and even today, it has not been properly researched or fully explained. Like so many other things, this kind of bioluminescence is a true mystery of the physical world. So I don't know about you, but I think Mark Twain had a point.
Today's lecture will be on an ancient Greek mathematician named Eratosthenes. Eratosthenes' claim to fame is that he is the first person to have accurately measured the size of our planet. And interestingly enough, he did so not with the use of a fancy computer or a high-tech compass, but only a stick. Now, at the time of Eratosthenes' observations, which were made around 240 BCE, the idea that the Earth was round was still relatively new. Around 250 years earlier, the Greek mathematician Pythagoras had proposed a theory that the Earth was round. Then, in 350 BCE, the Greek philosopher Aristotle, who had wide-ranging knowledge of mathematics and astronomy, essentially proved the idea to be true. So given that there were some strong clues that the Earth was in fact a sphere, Eratosthenes set out on the difficult task of finding out just how large the Earth was. The task was difficult because it meant taking measurements of shadows in places that were very far away from each other. Eratosthenes began his observations in Syene, Egypt, presently known as Aswan. He had heard that on a certain day of the year and at a certain time of the day, the sun would not cast any shadows. That day was June 21st, the summer solstice, a very hot day of the year, and the time when the day was the longest. Eratosthenes traveled there to see it for himself. At noon on June 21st, he observed that no shadows were cast. He wondered if the same thing happened in other parts of the world, so he traveled to Alexandria, Egypt, and waited for another summer solstice to see if he would have the same experience as he did in Syene. What he discovered in Alexandria made him very curious. At the same time of day, on the same day of the year, the sun did in fact cast shadows. He decided, with the use of a stick, that he would measure the angle of the shadow. With that measurement in mind, he used the distance between Alexandria and Syene to determine the circumference of the Earth at the equator, or the distance it would take to travel around the planet at its widest point. That was over 2,000 years ago. His measurement, done in stadium lengths at the time, was equivalent to 40,000 kilometers. With the more precise instruments that we have today, we have determined that the Earth's circumference is 40,074 kilometers. Those two numbers are almost the same.
After I graduate from college, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be working in my father's textile plant. To tell you the truth, I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that.
Well, working in a family business has its pros and cons. I've been working in my mother's catering business for 6 years now, even before I started college. I really love it because I enjoy catering. It's funny because when I was a little girl, I hated being in the kitchen. But surprisingly, I grew up to appreciate the finer arts of cooking.
Well, to be honest, I like everything about my dad's business. As a child, I was fascinated by the process of making fabric. I used to watch the workers for hours. But I feel like I might be missing out on other opportunities in life.
I understand. The great thing about working in a family business, and there are many great things in my opinion, is that everyone is invested in making the company a success. Since it's the main source of income for the family, it's important for everyone to do their jobs.
Yes, but the thing I worry about is if I have a fight at work with my brother or my uncle, then it's going to carry over into our personal relationship. I get along very well with my uncle, of course, so I can't imagine ever having a fight with him. But my brother? Oh my, when don't we fight? I mean, I have respect for him, and I think he's an intelligent person, but we don't often see things the same way.
Unfortunately, we sometimes have arguments with our family, and it's hard to keep work life separate from home life. But the truth is, learning how to leave work problems at work can be a good thing. That drives you to be a better person. And no doubt arguing about things from time to time brings about new ideas.
If you ask me, I think it's better to disagree with people you don't know so well, instead of your family. My family tends to get into heated discussions that don't have anything to do with work.
Oh, Paolo. Obviously, you and your family need to work out your differences, but surely there's a way to do that. I think if you enjoy your dad's business, you should take advantage of that opportunity. You will definitely have a better position than if you started at the bottom of a company. You should give it a chance, and if things don't work out, you'll at least have the work experience to find something more enjoyable.
You're right, and you mentioned some good things to think about. Well, I don't finish college for another year, so I don't need to make a decision yet. Thanks for your advice.